Hi, Misha here. And last year there was a decent amount of talk about the FN P90 and PS90, really because of its cartridge, 5.7 millimeter, 5.7 by 28, because on February 25, 2021, it was officially accepted as a NATO standard, along with HK's own 4.6 by 30. The cartridge that had been competing with it for 20 years. I was already considering getting another PS90. It's one of those things that I've gone back and forth with many times over the years and had plans and hopes. As you know, last year my March and April didn't go well, and so a lot of things got put on the back burner. I was going to simply settle for a PS90, one of the current standard ones, with the Picatinny barrel on top and the iron sights. This is the modern style that's been available for about the past 10 years. But I really liked the classic because that's what I owned back in 2006. And then one did end up coming my way. Around April of last year, I ended up getting an older so-called US GI model in on trade. Now this has the updated ring sight. I'll talk about the differences. My original one from 2006 had the first style with the polymer housing. This is the alloy housing style, arguably much better. And so these would have been those made towards the middle and end of production before they switched over to the pick rail. They also, of course, have offered a tri-rail version from FN. In what I'd like to talk about, there's much that's been said about this and the cartridge, and probably many that can give you better ideas. But, I have been shooting the PS90 for over 15 years, so here's my take and why I ended up getting another one. It's unfortunate that my plans last year had to be put on hold. Hopefully I'll be able to pick them up in 2022. We'll see. But we did get some shooting footage done last summer. And funnily enough, even though it had been well over a decade, not only did J-Ro remember this gun, his father even remembered it, which means he probably only shot it once a long time ago, and it stuck in his head. And that's kind of one of the benefits. It does stick in people's heads because this is a unique firearm. From the cartridge to the magazine, even to the optics, and the fact that it's a bullpup. What's funny is a lot of people say, well, if it used a common mag or if it fired a common cartridge, it'd be better or I'd buy it. The thing is, that's kind of what made the P90 PS90. So with that, we'll just have some historical context because it's me and it's how we do things around here. Long before the bullpup itself, the carbine itself, was the idea of the cartridge. Work began in the mid-80s at FN Herstal in Belgium for a new next generation round, and to kind of replace 9x19 Parabellum and the submachine gun. Now, the military version, SS90 originally, then SS190 was armor piercing. For YouTube, I will point out this is not those. This is an SS195, so it's the hollow point version that is not armor piercing. Just want to make that clear for YouTube. Perfectly legal sporting round. And it is quite similar in a lot of ways to 223, as you see here. But it would take them a little while to develop that cartridge, so we'll come back to that. So once this was underway, one of the next things I started to work on was a magazine. And while several types were discussed, this interesting spiral feed design was already thought of around 1987-88, and was being patented around 1989. The reasons for this will become clear. It actually wasn't until around 1988 the work on an actual carbine for these was fully underway at FN, known as Project 1990. And at that time, things kind of became cohesive. And so you have to wonder why. What's all this for? Aside from obviously just to make money for FN. Thanks to good connections and just following the military and police markets in the 80s, FN had a very good idea of what NATO would soon be requesting, and they would make it official in 1989. They wanted a new cartridge to replace 9x19, and they wanted both a PDW, carbine submachine gun, to use it, as well as a handgun. The carbine needed to be 3 kilograms, so 6.5 pounds or less, and the pistol, 700 grams to 1 kilogram maximum, and they really wanted them to have a capacity of at least 20 rounds. And they needed to be essentially ambidextrous. They needed to be able to be carried on the body hands-free, so either with a sling or a holster. They needed to be able to get in and out of cockpits, hatches, cabs, because while, yes, some special forces and SWAT and what have you would be using this counterterrorism, it was mainly for vehicle drivers and air crews. Is a weapon of last resort, literally a personal defense weapon. And to go with it, the new cartridge here needed to have better range, accuracy, performance than 9mm, and it needed to be able to penetrate, at the time, new body armor at range. And that actually explains the interesting magazine system. As you see here, the cartridges do rotate, I'm sure you know, coming out. That allows it to set flush, not get caught on things, have a good large capacity. It does make mag changes a little bit slower, although one can get quite proficient. But with the larger capacity and being a PDW, it's not really expected you need to switch mags often. Of course, it's lightweight, it's durable. The cartridge itself was actually a brand new clean sheet design. 5.7 millimeters across. It's a little bit fatter than 5.56. The case is just under 29 millimeters, and the overall length is about 40.5 millimeters. We'll talk about the different cartridges in a minute, but started off with SS190, and it did prove better in certain situations than 9mm. For one thing, it was lighter, and it had better practical accuracy at range, and yes, it had better penetration against body-type armor. Of course, there would be trade-offs because of the relatively small cartridge. As far as the submachine gun, PDW, truly ambidextrous, including the safety selector, easy to field strip and maintain, came with an optical sight. The military version would have a 10.5-inch barrel with removable flash hider or muzzle device. Overall length just a hair under 20 inches. The civilian PS90s here are just a hair over 26 inches long, with a barrel at about 16.5 inches. Now, you would think these would be direct blowback guns. They're actually not. They have a minor delay built in. That's why the barrel recoils back just a bit. So it's actually just a little bit of a delayed recoil gun. Just kind of find that interesting. And it's totally sealed up, very snag-free. Even has a dust cover, and it ejects from the bottom. I'm sure you know that. and you can even put a cool brass catcher there. It's a pretty innovative design by today's standards, and it was actually quite revolutionary for 1989-1990, which is when FN started to kind of show this stuff off. But of course, the end of the Cold War would slow things down a bit. That said, these were in production by 1990 because some early production models or late prototypes were used by Belgian special forces in 1991 during the Gulf War, mostly just to try things out, see what worked and didn't work, but they were fielded. And that actually would lead to some changes, including a new cartridge. But, you know, we've got some shooting footage. Not a lot of it because this ammo is expensive, but I'm sure I'm boring you by this point. Let's cut over to me from last year at the range. PS90. And she worked. It really is a fun gun for what it is. Here's 223 5.56 round compared. It is quite a bit shorter and lighter and has its purpose. So after initial field testing in 92, they actually worked on an improved version introduced in 1993. This is when SS90 became SS190, and the gun, and especially the magazine, you can see the divot here, were slightly reworked. SS90 had a 23 grain projectile with a polymer core. SS190 was 31 grain and went to more of a bimetal type core. And it was a little bit shorter, about 2.7 millimeters shorter. They did this partially to improve performance, feeding, and also to kind of make it more acceptable, easy to use in the upcoming handgun. The carbine was out, but the handgun was still being worked on. So the SS190 would be introduced, as well as other rounds in the 90s, and it was kind of off to the races after this. It would be increasingly adopted by militaries and police units. Quite famously, the Houston Police Department adopted it in 1999. That was the first one in the USA. And from there, and also famously, including using this site, the Secret Service would start using these in the 21st century. And in the 90s, NATO would slow the pace down, but they would never abandon the trials. In fact, they were working on new test targets for the armor-piercing, bulletproof vest piercing. And so around 2000, they were, working on it. But then, of course, 2001, things immensely changed. The war in Afghanistan at first, and then the war in Iraq. That put a greater need on this for the 21st century. So finally, in 2002, running through 2003, this went up against really the only competition, the HK 4.6 by 30 millimeter round with the MP7. The main members of the committee, the NATO committee that were doing the tests, were from France, Canada, the UK, and the USA. And it seems like they categorically felt that the 5.7 was better for adoption than the 4.6. Although the Germans protested, and so this ultimately kind of scuttled any official formal standardization, kind of just leaving member nations to either adopt one or the other or stick with 9mm, whatever. Their reasons seemed solid enough. They claimed that armor penetration was basically equal, but non-armored body penetration and use was better with the 5.7. Not surprising, considering 4.6, 5.7, about a millimeter's worth of difference. Yeah. Saying a lot when people often criticize these rounds for being too anemic. but making any smaller is not going to help. They also pointed out that because it's so close, 5.7 to 5.56, that a production line could use the same type of tooling to make these as these, whereas 4.6 was new, so all new stuff would be needed. They also pointed out that 4.6 tended to put more stress on barrels. These are cold hammer forged chrome line, good barrels, and it's not like 5.7 is not cooking, but 4.6 put even more stress and strain on the barrel and guns, so they were worried about wearing out. They also said that 4.6 was more susceptible to the cold or high altitudes compared with 5.7. And finally, they pointed out that 5.7 had been around for a decade, 4.6 was only a few years old, and that 5.7 not only had a carbine, it also had a pistol. FN had finally released the 5.7 pistol in 1998, and at that time HK only had the MP7. They did not have a pistol yet. So these are the reasons. Agree, disagree, or think this is a ridiculous notion. That's totally up to you. Probably not a right or wrong answer, but I would say it is a unique weapon. It is a unique design for the magazine to the cartridge. But like I was saying earlier, some wish it would feed from standard mags, or maybe it was chambered for 9mm. Yeah, I don't see how this magazine system would work with 9mm. It's very much specifically designed for 5.7. And since this is just a slightly delayed blowback gun, it's not a locked breech, it would not be strong enough to handle 223, 5.56. Basically, it was designed around this cartridge, so if you want a P90 or PS90, you want 5.7. Otherwise, kind of what's the point? But, you know, it probably looks more awkward than it really is. It's actually quite comfortable. Now, yeah, it's pretty, you have to scrunch up on it, but you also want it to be compact because of being able to get it in and out of a vehicle, have it on your body, not get in the way, slap you around. Everything's a compromise, of course, but that said, it's probably a lot easier and safer and quicker and more intuitive to fire than a pistol. In fact, even though J-Ro had not picked one up in a very long time, he took back to it, including the sight, pretty quickly. Take a look. PS90.
This is such a weird gun.
It's been a few years, huh?
Alright, there's a few left in here. I'll let Haley finish them off.
You hit it.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, again, the ammo was quite spendy, so we only had a couple of boxes that day. Yep, this part of it. The funny thing is, it hasn't really gotten much higher or much cheaper since I had my first one. Not once you adjust for inflation. Like I said, SS90 would be replaced by SS190 in 1993, which was a 31 grain FMJ, high armor piercing, high velocity round. It would be joined by others. There would be SS191, later named L191, the same, but it was a tracer round. There was also SS192, which was the first, I guess you'd call it civilian or practice round, hollow point type. This actually had a 28 grain projectile because of the hollow point. And there would also be the, well, it was first known as SS193, later SB193, which was a 55 grain round that was subsonic, meant for use with the suppressor version. And there would be the T194, which is similar to the 192, which was essentially a training round. Now, some of these would go away. They would change up the product line at FN between 2002 and 2006, so there would be some new models introduced to replace the old. For example, SS 195 lead-free would replace 192 and 194, still having the 28 grain hollow point. Then there would have been the SS 196 sporting round, which had a 40 grain bullet that was not considered armor piercing. It would get replaced by the SS 197 sporting round, which was still a little bit faster. Still had the 40 grain bullet and still not armor piercing, but just a little more oomph. And then there would also be SS 198, which was like SS 195, but it had that little bit more oomph that we saw between 96 and 97. And 98 is still not considered armor piercing as such, but it's often labeled as LE. So, yeah, the only one that's really you can't get would be 190, 191, and 193. Those would be the verboten ones. The rest are acceptable in one level or another. And of course, there are third-party brands now like American Eagle and elsewise. So there's more options now than there used to be. And this here, PS90, was first released in 2005, although they were pretty hard to get for the first 6 months or so. And again, they came with this sighting system for the first 5-6 years. And you can still get the tri-rail pretty early, but the version here with the alloy pick lip rail would come later. So what about this here sight? From the get-go, the P90 and PS90 came with a one power non-magnified reflex sight from Ring Sight. The initial version was the HC 1462, which had a polymer housing, had a white ring with about a 3.5 MOA dot. It did have tritium for night use, and it had a collector for fiber optic day use. This would give way to this version here, the MC 1080, which Ring Sight would make explicitly for the P90 PS90, whereas the previous 1462 was adapted from an existing design. They went to the metal housing, as I said. It has a black ring instead of white. The fiber optic collector has been moved. Still has tritium though. Of course, it's windage and elevation adjustable. And the final version was the MC 1080 electronic, which replaced the tritium with a battery, which gave variable light. You could adjust the reticle's brightness. Just a more modern sight. I don't think that lasted too long before they started going to various pick rail adapters as standard. Should also point out that there are iron sights along the sides, fixed here. And for this version, they still are there. Plus there's another iron sight tunnel under this with an adjustable front post. Now, this sight system is lightweight, and for some, like J-Ro and his father, it seems intuitive to use. But for some, like his significant other, not so much. So here's a clip of her trying to figure out this sight. It's a bit of a long clip, but hey, you get a good bit of nature scene. But you may want to go at double speed. It's up to you. Well, anyway, so it's nice to be outdoors, right?
Take the mag. Alright, we are empty.
Where's safety?
Safety is this weird little selector switch right here.
Okay.
Which is nice, it's right by your trigger finger.
Right.
But it's clearly labeled S for safe, 1 for go.
Okay.
There you go. Now the mag, let's turn where I can kind of see this. Yeah, the mag kind of slides in the top there, and then just pushes down.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's weird.
Okay.
And your charging handle's right here. Now right now we've got the selector set to safe, so let's go downrange. And again, this is gonna be one you want to kind of get down on.
Hold on, gotta get it.
And when you look through the sights, you'll see.
Hold on.
Yeah.
You gotta figure out where it goes.
Watch your trigger discipline.
It is my second finger. I'm sorry. This one's weird. Like
It's very weird. And your hand needs to be behind this front post right here.
I got that.
Can you see the reticle in the sights?
Hold on, oh my god, that's.
It kind of floats around, but you'll see some crosshairs in there.
I see. Hold on. I'm sorry.
It can be a little hard to pick up those front sights. Kind of, you want to be looking through it, not in it.
I see it. But I mean, like I see what.
The black crosshairs.
I don't see the black crosshairs, but I see. I'm almost determined that I'm needing my glasses to do this stuff instead of sunglasses.
Maybe so.
Okay, so I can see stuff floating in there.
You can. Okay, there's a little crosshair reticle in there with a little hole right in the middle of the crosshairs.
I'm just not seeing the crosshairs.
And that's where the bullet's going to go.
Put your head lower on it and see if you
Yeah.
find it.
And that's why I was saying with a lot of these shorter, like
there they
Bullpup,
are.
you see it?
I do know.
And that's why you want to get down on the gun. Bring your shoulders up and get your weight forward and hold the gun tighter. And that way your face is almost right behind, aligned behind the sights. And the nice thing about these is there's no real action that's going to throw brass in your face. There's no bolt sliding back that's going to hit you, so you can really get right down on the gun. But can you see the crosshairs?
I've lost them.
It's tricky.
I had them. I don't know where they went.
You might cut it at this point. Or not.
I was going to mention there are iron sights on either side too.
Do those irons, are they reliable? With one on one side and one on the other?
They're fine for snap shooting.
Something that close?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had it, and then I looked up, and I lost it again.
It is easy to lose them. Yeah, try.
I'm just not seeing them again.
Might try bringing the stock up a little higher on your shoulder. I know when I did it, I had a lot of trouble finding the.
Yeah, you want to be as close to behind the gun as you can. That's better.
There's a bug crawling up my arm.
I'm just not seeing them again. Like I saw them.
Try, instead of trying to focus at the target downrange, have the focus of your eyes right here.
No, I am, but I can see downrange and not see the crosshairs. Like that's the thing. Like I'm not trying to aim or anything. I'm just trying to find the crosshairs. Because I saw them.
I think you're focusing too much. I think you just need to relax and just pull it up and kind of more. It's meant for.
Right.
Well, it's meant for more of an instinct.
Let me see it.
It's called the reflex sight. It's just meant to be instinctually pulled and shot without focusing on the crosshairs.
I saw them for like a split second, and then I looked up, and I can't find them again.
Right.
Why it is? It's because you've got your head kind of leaned down like this, and if you do that, then the reticle is below the window. So instead of trying to lean your head down to look through the sights, you see where I've got the buttstock right under my chin bone, my cheekbone there. I'm looking right through it.
Okay.
If you're looking like this, you're not going to see them. You've got to bring the butt of the gun, in and tight, and put your cheek right behind it.
Well, and I noticed moving the gun, it moved the thingy to where you can try to find the crosshairs.
So you'll notice, I mean, with my cheek right here, I'm looking right at it. So try.
Putting my cheek
Don't
up
worry
against
so much
it.
about the shoulder part of it. and just work on putting this right under your cheekbone so you're looking straight through it, not tilted and down at it. Like bring the gun up to your face.
Hold on. Get here just a second.
Bring the gun up to your face and then worry about your shoulder. There you go. Atta girl.
There they are.
Yeah. With your face right behind the sights, it lines right up. Better?
Well, now I've lost it. I find them and then I lose them when I want to get to where I want to be.
Yeah, focus on face on the gun, and then worry about your shoulder after that.
My ears are getting in the way.
Yeah, I had a little bit of trouble with that too. My ear pro was kind of sitting on the.
Yeah, they'll do that.
Got it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, when you want to shoot it, this little rocker switch right here at the inside the trigger guard will go from safe to fire.
Okay, hold on.
We did already rack this one, right?
I think so.
I think so too.
I hope so. No, there we go.
All right, that's hot.
Nope.
All right,
I knew
right.
that.
How do I rack it?
It's just like with the, there you go. Just pull this back and then let it go.
Oh my god.
Give it a good tug.
I don't know if it's right. Oh, that's hard.
Let's make sure the mag's seated right. Let me see it.
I don't like this one anymore.
You will once you shoot it.
Hold on a second.
Hold on.
No.
Hey, that's fire. That's on fire. That's on fire.
No, it's not safe.
Oh, okay.
Got the S filter, but the mag is loose. Hold that. Yeah, what this really needs is it needs a little, like these charging slides, the charging handle, ought to be able to flip out, you know, like an MP5, I mean, like a...
The reason they didn't do that was snag. Since that's meant to be carried more like a pistol, they didn't want something that could potentially pull out and get snagged.
All right, so that's seated in there good. Got it unsafe here. That ought to be ready to go.
Okay,
So-
now the hard part.
Now the
the
hard
hard part. The hard part. Oh, we lost the cross capture.
Yeah, watch out.
I'm aware.
Remember, cheek on the gun and get behind it. See him?
Yeah.
Yep, that's the trick. Still got the sights?
No, because my ear pro's in the way.
Yeah, that is a problem. I could always stick my fingers in your ears.
No, just give me a sec. I think I'm just gonna, once I find them, just shoot. Because I've got, maybe go this way just a little bit instead of trying to aim for that blue.
Okay. Down on the gun, face behind the sights.
There we go.
There it is. Murders.
We're empty.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot left in that bag. You got it.
And
Watch your muzzle.
finding the sights is probably the hardest thing.
Oh,
and
for
then
sure.
and then with the ear pro being so stealthy, I mean the electronic ears are.
So yeah, a cool design for the 1990s and maybe even early 2000s. But totally understandable why a pick rail would, see what they go to. The only problem with this pick rail that they use, it does mount very high, but various manufacturers have one that mounts much deeper in there and gets you down. But again, this is not a sniper weapon. This is a personal defense gun. So keep that in mind. Purpose and all that. It is very light recoiling. In fact, it was found to have quite a bit less felt recoil and rise than either 223 or 9mm. And it's very easy to maintain. It's very easy. These magazines, even though they hold a good bit of ammo, quite light, and they're very easy to load even by hand. The whole thing is very well thought out for what it is. Here we are apart, like most military guns, very easy to do. Splits into a few pieces. The barrel is, but you can remove them from the upper if you need to, but on the civilian version it is pinned for legal reasons. Simple push button, I'm sure you've seen it. Simple bolt group. We have a stock shell with thin rubber butt plate, and I took it apart because I'm going to talk about trigger packs. Much has been said and a lot of bad misinfo. There is a rumored Gen 4 pack. Nowadays it seems like they didn't exist, or they were kind of custom deals. The original ones were essentially black body, black hammer, and this out of battery sear here was green. With Gen 2, the body would go to gray, and we would start to see a switch from from black to a gray hammer, and we would go from the OD out of battery safety to a gray one. Gen 3 would actually have a small mechanical difference. That catch is altered a bit. With the Gen 1 and Gen 2, the hammer would not go forward even that far, but still gets caught to make sure you don't have an out of battery detonation. So there is a mechanical difference for safety with the Generation 3 pack, but the difference 1 and 2 is essentially coloration of the parts. People have sometimes paid a lot of money for a Gen 1 pack, and frankly, I do not understand why, aside from them saying, I have a Generation 1 pack. It's kind of silly if you ask me. And the same can be said for the FS2000. They use a very, very similar configuration, just bigger. See, there you go. If you want a PS90 and 223, you could always get an FS2000, I guess. But these have been quite successful in military and police service, at least for a PDW in the 21st century. Back together could not be easier, and there's really no reason to disassemble it. The original P90 flash hider is a birdcage. It just unscrews. It's on 13mm threads, although you can get a 1/2x28 adapter because this is designed to run with the can if needed. Again, since these are civilian, they have the extended barrel with permanently affixed muzzle brake. I would like to SBR one of these, but I want to locate a nice FN barrel first. And I thought I had one located last year, but it fell through. So once I locate a 10-inch FN barrel, then I'll probably move forward there. Otherwise, I really don't want to put a US barrel in. I'm sure they're perfectly good barrels made here in the USA. Absolutely sure of it. But kind of the part of an FN is their chrome line cold hammer forged barrels. It's almost like I'd rather have the 16-inch goofy long barrel and have an original FN than the correct 10.5-inch barrel, but it be a US part. That's just me, though. These are importable as is because there's technically no pistol grip, obviously no bayonet lug, and they ship with a 30-round magazine or even a 10-round mag. The body's the same. They just put a block in the end if needed. Here's my mag pouch. As nice as the guns are and the magazines, I will say FN kind of fell down on the pouches. For one thing, they were really expensive, and they weren't the best, so this is just I think it's a Blackhawk. Works well, holds too. You can get other styles. And kind of the same thing goes. The factory sling, especially for the PS90 with the little kind of cigar cutter clip that goes on the front, it's dorky as hell. So, again, had to go aftermarket. This is an ERT sling, kind of the same sling I have on my Benelli M4. I like it. It's convertible. Works well. But, yeah, the P90, the Select Fire version, has been adopted with as many as 200 police departments in the USA. Like I said, the Houston police were the first. The Secret Service would soon join them. And upwards of 40 nations have bought these, not in big numbers, but for special forces and what have you. And it's a pretty varied list. While some do use the MP7, it seems like the P90 has become more popular. But again, it's a very niche thing, and of course, body armor and the needs of the battlefield are ever changing. And of course, if we're talking about adoption, we have to point out that in 2000, Stargate Command (SGC) adopted the P90, replacing the MP5A3, as well as some older GA5s in the Air Force. You didn't think I was going to get through a PS90, P90 video and not mention that, right? You have seen my personal channel. No, there's really nothing new I can add, unfortunately. A lot of people have done great videos on these already. Forgotten Weapons and Henry at 9-Hole. But I had the shooting footage, and if nothing else, I have had a long run of experience with the PS90. Why I keep buying them, I don't know. It's like I'll get one, like it, realize I don't shoot it much because of the ammo, sell it when someone offers me stupid money, but then I miss it and end up getting one again. And it's been about 3 years since we've done a video on it, so why not? They're high quality, they're a lot of fun. The one good thing, while the ammo is still not that easy to find, at least the magazines are easier. When these first came out, it was really hard to find the FN mags. You can get the aftermarket, what are the ATI mags, the Korean ones. I actually still encourage you to get the Fabrique Nationale, the Belgian mags. They work better. They have better springs in them is what I've noticed. You can also get at least American Eagle ammo now, 5.7. Will it work in this? Some say yes, some say no. Experiences vary. I really don't know. I've ended up with FN ammo, so I'll have to get a box of American Eagle and try her out, to be honest with you. Maybe something to do this summer. And maybe it doesn't work with the longer barrel, but would work with the shorter one. I don't know. I would like to SBR this, but we'll see how things go. I originally did pick this one up at the store, figuring I'd be okay with the rail, and that's fine. But then, like I said, when this one came along, this is really what I wanted. So, it's kind of what I went for. I'll do something with this one later. But, you know, around here we like pistol caliber guns. I've had the 5.7 pistols in the past. They're fine. But they're very conventional. And, I don't know, just they don't quite speak to me the way this one does. Maybe because I first encountered the full auto version around 2002, 2003 in my youth and was able to shoot one. It left an impression on me. So, yeah, I'm sure that has something to do with it. Same place had a PPSH 41, and I wanted one of those after that too. So, it was a very expensive day in some ways. But, yeah, let me know what you think. I don't know. Hope everyone's having a good time and trying to, you know, be even Steven about everything. If you could, please do like, share, and subscribe. Sorry this video took a year to come out. And if you'd like to help support the channel, please check out the link to the Patreon page. This is Misha. Catch you very soon. Next time.